Hello everyone, my name is Kira. Welcome back to my channel. Now when I started A Pictured Purpose, I never anticipated to do coloring book reviews or flip throughs. However, I am making an exception today and for a very special reason. I was incredibly lucky to receive an early release copy of Sarah Renae Clarke's new adult coloring book, Vibrant Wilds, and I had to share this moment with you all. The book is now available to the public, but I did get to receive it a week earlier than it went live online. But it's even more meaningful to me because Sarah's channel is one of the main reasons that I got into adult coloring in the first place, and is also a major contributor to this channel here today. So I had to commemorate this occasion with a dedicated video. Today, I'll be sharing my honest thoughts and opinions on Vibrant Wilds, and also be testing out a variety of coloring supplies on one of the pages to see how the paper holds up. And if by the end of this video, you're interested in picking up a copy of this book for yourself, I don't have one currently, but maybe by the time I've uploaded this video, I'll have an affiliate link in the description below. There is absolutely no pressure whatsoever to use it, but it's a small way you can help support the channel. Now, I did film myself opening up the package because I wanted to capture this moment. The original clip was a full 11 minutes long, but I've managed to cut it down to just 3 minutes, so if you want to see me fangirling over a coloring book, it's a very embarrassing montage. I'll play that for you now, but feel free to skip ahead to this timestamp if you just want to get into my review and opinion. You are seeing a very raw and unfiltered version of me right now. My hair desperately needs a wash. I'm wearing a wrinkly shirt, but I can't wait a second longer to open this package. Oh my goodness. So about a week ago now, Sarah Renae Clarke messaged me on Instagram, which was so exciting in itself. But she also asked me if I wanted to receive an early release copy of her new adult coloring book, and of course I said yes. Sarah Renae Clarke is one of the main reasons I got into adult coloring, so this feels like such a full circle moment, and I'm so excited! First off, it seems like there is way more than a coloring book in here. So let's just open it. I'm so excited! How many times have I said I'm so excited? Why does it seem like there's so much in here? Okay, what is going on here? Why is there so many packages? Which one do I open first? I'm so confused. Yes! Oh my goodness, I love her sticker books. Oh my gosh. This is the book here. Come on out, little buddy. Wow. First off, I love the name Vibrant Wilds. I think that is a great name. Look at it. It's got some plastic film on it right now, which is why it's looking all shiny. And it's a hardcover book. And I know she would have chosen amazing paper for it. I do love myself some like gold foiling or any sort of foiling on my coloring books. I think it's always a stunning touch. Okay, actually, this might be one of her journals. Do you think? What is this? She sent me some random color cube cards. I love that. Wait. Okay, I've just read this here. Show off your new coloring planner and beautiful spreads. Is this a coloring planner? That design is gorgeous. Sarah and I both have a love for the color teal, so this box is gorgeous to me. Oh, it's beautiful. I actually feel like I'm gonna cry. No way. This is so beautiful. Sarah, you didn't have to do this. How did I get so lucky? Now let's get my first impressions on her new coloring book. Oh, it feels so gorgeous. This paper, no. Oh my goodness, this paper feels so luxe. I think this is the nicest paper I've ever felt in a coloring book. There's like a lot of intricacy, but there's also so much room to add your own elements to it as well. And really make it your own. It's really giving me a mix of Johanna Basford and Emily Lederhall Oberg. I've seen some of these illustrations from her before as well. She must have revamped them. I'm going to need 5 to 10 business days to process all of this. Oh. And that is exactly what I did. It's been about a week since I filmed that unboxing, so I've had a bit of time to gather my thoughts and opinions to share with you all. So here it is, Vibrant Wilds by Sarah Renae Clark. Right away you can see that this is a hardcover book and the quality is absolutely phenomenal. If you've ever purchased anything from Sarah's website, you'll know that the quality of her products are absolutely top-notch, and this coloring book is no exception. If you're wondering about the size of the book, it's around the same size as Emily Lederhall Oberg's Fairy Tales and Folklore, which is just a tinsy bit bigger than a Maria Troll book or a Hannah Carlzon book. It's also a stitch-bound coloring book, and immediately one of my favorite things about this book when I opened it was the nameplate page, specifically what it says. It reads, "This book is an art collaboration between Sarah and blank," which obviously you put your name in the blank spot, and I think that is an amazing touch. Every time I color in a book, I've always thought that it feels like I'm collaborating with the artist in some way, and so I'm very happy that Sarah has acknowledged this feeling from the start. I'll go over what's written in the introduction in just a moment, but I just have to say, this paper quality is phenomenal. I've never felt a paper like this in any coloring book I've tried in the past. After flipping through this book multiple times, I will say that Sarah has done an incredible job at including a variety of illustrations in this book. Not only is the content itself incredibly diverse, you've got animals, portraits, florals, buildings, but the types of coloring pages are just as varied. There are high detailed pages for those who like really intricate illustrations, open spaces for those who love to add their own backgrounds, a handful of small victory style pages, and even pages designed for adding your own creative elements. If I had to be super duper nitpicky, one improvement that I think would make this book a little bit more beginner friendly is if Sarah had included just some subtle shading details within the illustrations. The artwork is fantastic for colorists who already understand where to place their highlights and shadows. However, for complete beginners, some of these pages might feel a little bit intimidating. So perhaps if some of the pages had included some subtle dots and lines to indicate where the shadow placement would be, sort of like you'd find in a Kirby Rosant or Melpomene Chattopanagiotou book, I think that could have made some of these pages a lot more approachable for newcomers to dive in with confidence. But that is me just being super duper critical and thinking about what other colorists in the community might appreciate. It is not an issue for me whatsoever, and overall I think the illustrations and the quality of this book are just, I love it. It's great. Now, circling back to the introduction, I want to highlight some incredibly valuable words that Sarah has written here. She says, "I encourage you, don't put this book on the shelf without first making your mark. If you don't feel ready, choose a page you're less interested in as a starting place, get some color in it, and don't worry about it being perfect. Get out your fear, get out your mistakes, and remind yourself that this book is meant to be enjoyed, not left uncolored on a shelf." She elaborates this sentiment a little bit more in the introduction, but I just think she has absolutely hit the nail on the head with this. So many of us leave our coloring books untouched, waiting for the time when we're ready or when our skills are good enough. But the reality is we never feel truly ready for anything in life. Coloring is an incredible practice in fearlessness, overcoming perfectionism, and in unleashing creativity without overthinking it. I love that Sarah has emphasized this message right from the start, highlighting that our books should be loved, colored in, and not admired from a distance. But the pages I'm most excited to color in this book are these two pages here. I'm absolutely obsessed with underwater themed pages, so these two are right up my alley. They could be colored as a double page spread or individually, and I can already picture some really cool water effects for the background. Now it's time to put this phenomenal paper to the test. At the front of the book, Sarah mentions that you can pretty much use any type of media, except for alcohol markers, which is kind of a given since it's a double-sided coloring book. She also notes that water-based mediums can be used in the book, but to be mindful of how much water you use just to minimize the buckling. So that's exactly what I'm going to test out. I'm going to be coloring the background for this page here with my Mei Liang watercolor set, and I am not going to hold back. I won't go overboard, but I'll use as much water as I need to blend the colors on the paper, and we'll just see what happens. For the background, my plan is to do a rainbow watercolor galaxy. Lately, I've been craving more vibrant coloring pages, and so I thought this was the perfect opportunity to go all out. And I've also never done a rainbow watercolor galaxy before. The first thing you'll see me do here is mask off the butterflies and the border. I went into this masking method a little bit more thoroughly in my recent oil pastels video, but here's the basic gist. All you need to do is lightly stick the masking tape onto the element that you're trying to cover, sketch out that element, peel off the tape, cut that shape out, and then stick it back in place on the page to the best of your ability. It can be a little bit of a tedious process, but I find that it works for me, especially with my fear of masking fluid. You'll notice that I'm not being super precise with the masking tape placement, and that's because I know I can reactivate the watercolors once I've peeled the tape off and just bring that color a little bit closer to the line work. Or maybe use my watercolor pencils to fill in those uncolored areas, which you may or may not see me doing very shortly. So yeah, here I am going to town with the watercolors. I did notice that the paper absorbed the watercolors a little bit more than traditional watercolor paper, but that's obviously to be expected. However, I was still able to blend the watercolors fairly well by removing as much of the pigment as possible from the brush and then using that clean, damp brush to just blend the colors seamlessly across the page. Throughout the process, I kept sneaking peeks at the back of the page to make sure there was no bleed through happening, and I'm very happy to report that there was zero bleed through, which is just incredible. I'm gonna have to try Neocolor 2s on this paper next. I've only done 2 Neocolor 2 backgrounds in the past, and for both of those backgrounds, I had bleed through issues, even on the awesome paper in Fairy Tales and Folklore. So it'll be interesting to see if I have the same issue in this coloring book as well. Who knows, it could also just be a me issue. And I'd also like to try multiple layers of Derwent Inktense pencils as well. To finish off the background, I added a bunch of splatters in white and gold watercolors. I do want to clarify that I didn't use the white pigment here to create opaque white splatters. I used it because I wanted to add more texture to the background, because if you're splattering white on top of an already wet watercolor background, it's just going to blend into whatever's already on the page. However, I did go back in later to add some white acrylic splatters and a few paint pen star details to really enhance the galaxy vibes. Then came the moment of truth, peeling off the masking tape. This is always a bit of a nerve-wracking experience for me. I often find that in my coloring books where the paper quality is average or worse, there's always at least a little bit of peeling or paper ripping, but to my relief, that did not happen at all in this book. I didn't get a super crisp edge on the sides of the background. This always happens to me. This is not a book issue, that's just me needing to sort my life out. I also tried to show you to the best of my ability here how warped the paper got after using the watercolors, and it really wasn't bad at all. I'm confident that I'll easily be able to flatten this out once I've finished coloring the page. Something I've actually been doing recently to flatten my pages is heating it up with a hairdryer and then placing a kettlebell or some really heavy dumbbells over top of the book overnight, and I found that to be super effective. I know a lot of colorists out there iron their pages, but I absolutely hate ironing with a passion. So this is my lazy girl method for flattening out my slightly buckled coloring pages. As I mentioned earlier, I did mask the butterflies pretty roughly. So to fix the uncolored sections, I went in with my Derwent Inktense and a tiny little water brush to fill in those sections. Reactivating the watercolors with the Derwent Inktense really did help it all blend together super seamlessly, so it wasn't really obvious that I had to add those extra coloring details in later. Now it's time to test out some different brands of coloring pencils. I only own 3 sets of standard coloring pencils. I have my 160 set of Brute Funas, my 126 set of Artex pencils, and then my 150 set of Prismacolors. So I'll be coloring each of these butterflies with a different brand, and we'll see if one outperforms the other. I'm going to start out by testing my Artex pencils. As you'll see, the coloring approach I'm taking with each of these butterflies is pretty freeform. I'm coloring them however I want, pretty much ignoring the patterns that Sarah has already illustrated on the wings. And this is something I've been experimenting with a lot more recently in my coloring pages. If I come across an illustration that has a lot of patterns or Zen doodly type of elements, I simply ignore it and color over the line work. And I will say there is something really freeing about coloring over the illustration lines, which often feels illegal in adult coloring. I know a lot of colorists out there take this approach with Zen Doodle books, and whilst I don't know if I would ever purchase a purely Zen Doodle coloring book, I love borrowing the techniques from those pages and applying them to more intricate illustrations. But enough of that tangent. How did the Artex pencils perform? Honestly, I think they worked beautifully. I'm not the most experienced colorist out there. I don't have a crazy art background, but as someone who's been coloring for 16 months, I can tell when a certain pencil brand doesn't work with a particular type of paper, and that was not the case here. For the next butterfly, I tried out my Prismacolors, and unsurprisingly, these worked beautifully in this coloring book as well. This is the most expensive set of pencils that I own, and in my experience, I've found that Prismacolors tend to work well on most pages. However, they really do shine when paired with a high quality paper type, and that's what we can see happening here. For each of the brands that I'm testing today, I'm using a blending technique rather than a layering approach, simply because that's what I prefer as a colorist and what I'm most adept at. However, in the future, I would really love to test out how each of these pencil brands perform with a layering approach instead. We might get different results. But regardless, at least in this circumstance here, I do think the Prismacolors worked better than the Artex pencils, which makes sense considering they are more expensive and also higher quality. That leaves the final butterfly to be colored with my Brute Funa pencils. I do think they performed the worst out of the 3 that I tried today, but that could be due to the fact that I used a blending approach rather than a layering one. I've recently found that my Brute Funas perform the best on higher quality paper when using a layering approach. And I think this is because they have a higher ratio of oil in their formulation as opposed to wax. I just find layering really tedious sometimes, and I have to be in the right mood in order to do it. When I do take my time with layering though, the results are always worth it. So while I think the Brute Funas performed the worst out of all the pencil sets that I tried today, they are still the most affordable and performed pretty well with all things considered. But you know what my personal pencil preference is going to be for this book. It's gonna be the Prismacolors. I was able to smoosh and blend them out really well on this paper and even layer them a little bit as well. I do have no doubt that a high quality oil-based pencil would also perform really well in this book. Sarah is so thorough with her testing and researching that she does for all of the videos on her channel. And if she gave this paper her stamp of approval, I'm sure oil-based pencils work just as effectively. Once I had finished coloring all 3 butterflies, I took a step back and realized I wasn't happy with the colors that I had chosen for the top butterfly. I wanted the darker colors to lean more towards an orange tone rather than a brown. This little mishap worked out really well for this video though. I decided I would try and erase as much of the brown shading as possible and see if I could still create a really nice pencil blend after the fact. Now I know this would not have worked in a lesser quality book. I've tried this on an Amazon printed coloring book and the result was not great because I use quite a heavy hand with my coloring pencils. So when I try to erase my heavy pressure coloring work, the texture of the paper gets compromised and it's really hard to create a smooth blend over top of it after I've done so much erasing. However, when I did this in Sarah's book, I encountered hardly any issues. Yes, the pencils didn't blend as easily as before, but considering the circumstance, the Artex pencils still laid down pretty gosh darn well. I then went off camera to add some white acrylic details and a little bit of shading behind the right-hand side of the butterflies, and this is how it all came together. I'm pretty happy with the final result. In her videos, Sarah always encourages her viewers to be daring, take risks, and really let their creativity shine. And I tried to embody that mindset whilst coloring this page. And as a result, I think I created a page that is very quintessentially me. So there you have it, everyone. Those are my honest thoughts and opinions on Sarah Renae Clarke's new coloring book. As you can tell from this video, I'm a huge fan and would recommend it to all of you out there. Let me know in the comments if you're planning on adding this book to your coloring book collection. And like I mentioned earlier, I should eventually have an affiliate link in the description box below if you want to purchase the book and support my channel in a small way as well, but there's absolutely no pressure. A massive thank you to Sarah yet again for sending me her new book, as well as all those amazing little goodies. I'll be showing those in a little bit more depth in my upcoming haul video, which won't be my next video, but it'll be the video after that. And until next time, happy coloring, friends. Have a good day, have a good life, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!